Hey everyone, my name is Carys Parker and I'm coming at you from the greater Seattle area where I live with my objectively cutest golden doodle in the world, Bernie. He's actually down here. I don't know if I can move my screen to see him, but there he is, always by my side. I am a part of the Presbyterian Church, Presbyterian USA, and I have been working at that church for a little while as the youth director. I'm under care with that church and hoping to enter the ordination process soon. But more recently, in the last half a year, or so, wow, time flies, I've been working actually as a hospital chaplain in Tacoma. So I left that job, still a part of that church, but now working full-time in Tacoma as a hospital chaplain, which has been very stretching and difficult, but also really meaningful during this COVID time where a lot of family members cannot come to the hospital. And so chaplains are kind of stepping in as almost surrogate family members to be with people as they're really struggling or even passing away without their family. So that has been an experience, to say the least. And when it also comes to church tradition, while I'm attending a Presbyterian church and grew up with Presbyterian parents, I also grew up in an international community. I lived on a hospital ship with an organization called Mercy Ships from when I was a baby to when I graduated high school. And so denominationally, I don't know if I even identified as Presbyterian. I just called myself a Christian because there were all these denominations on the ship from all over the world. But ultimately, we were all coming together because of our shared belief in God, our shared belief that Jesus came and lived and died for us and wanted more for us, wanted us to be a part of his restorative, reconciling, shalom-filled kingdom. And so, it's been interesting to now be working at a hospital and living in a part of the state where denominations are way more important and even divisive sometimes. Like if I'm not a specific denomination, sometimes people don't want to talk to me in the hospital. And so it's been an interesting shift to go from an international Christian community where it felt like those lines were not as strong to this work. So that's a little bit about me, my current understanding of my vocation. Oh, that's a great question. If I could boil it down for the sake of time, I would say that I love God's story. I am a huge fan of biblical history and just all of the stories that fill the Bible. And I think that I just want to live my life in a way that draws others and helps others find their own story in God's story. Whether it's looking at the past and studying the Bible and realizing how all this ancient wisdom applies to us today, or looking to the future and seeing our lives as Christians as a continuation of God's story. That excites me, and I believe that God always has so much more for us. And he's all about the business of reconciliation. And so I just want to be a part of, again, bringing people into that story and trying to realize in this life, I believe there is a life to come, but I also believe that God's kingdom starts now. And so in this life, how can we seek the greatest level or depth of shalom for ourselves and how we treat creation, for ourselves and how we treat others, and between ourselves and God? How do we live into that shalom? And I think it starts with stories, and I think it starts with understanding our stories within God's story, and realizing how our stories connect with everyone else's stories and the story of nature and creation. And so I love telling stories. I love hearing stories. And that's been one of my greatest joys about being a hospital chaplain, is I get to hear so many stories and hold them in such a sacred space and time. And so there is that when it comes to ethical topics that I'm interested in. I think just because of the times, and especially where I live in Seattle and working in youth ministry, sexual ethics is something that I continue to wrestle with, and I'm just trying to figure it out, and to have a safe space to talk about those things I would value so greatly. I'm also interested in creation ethics. That has been something that's become increasingly important to me because I think that's where it all begins. I think being able to go back to the earth and learn from the earth and learn to treat the earth with compassion and love and care is so important. And I think it's from that everything else can flow in political ethics and racial ethics and sexual ethics, everything. And then finally, I'm interested in all of these topics, but for the sake of time and the prompt, I think interfaith ethics is something that has become increasingly of interest to me, especially working in a hospital where a lot of my fellow co-chaplains are not of my same Christian faith, and then a lot of the patients that I work with are not Christian, and I need to be a good chaplain for them too. So how does that work? How can I really be open to seeing God at work, which I believe he is in so many ways in traditions and denominations, while also standing firm in what I believe to be true, that Jesus Christ did live and enter into our world and die and resurrect again, and that changed everything. And so how do I live in this kind of tension? Very interested in that. And something very weird, interesting about myself, I think I already said it, that I grew up on a hospital ship. That was a crazy time, but I loved it. Didn't realize it was really different from anything until I left the ship for college, where I attended Whitworth University, which was cool because I saw that our professor also attended there, so that's a small world. But yeah, that's definitely something kind of strange about me, I guess, but also wouldn't change it for the world. So there's a little bit about me. Looking forward to learning about you all and just going through such an important class with you this quarter. And I will talk to you all in class.